Hello, everybody. We are back. It is Saturday, April 15th, about 10 minutes late. But I'm here now. Let's see here. So, situated. Before we move on to the topic for today, 3 books from the library. We're gonna go through these a little quickly because I want to spend a little bit of time on the last one, which I talked about last time. First of all, we have, there's not a lot to be said about this, The Complete Mouse. Mouse, however you want to say it. You know, if you care about comics at all as an art form, if you care about graphic novels at all, if you see a distinction between those two, you gotta have Mouse, you gotta read Mouse, you gotta know something about Mouse. Oh no, oh dear. Leanna's watching, please behave yourself and speak only well of me. Okay, well, I'll do my best. But it is, I have to admit, I was aware of Mouse, but I didn't read it. I don't know. It might have even been like junior college or something. Like it was fairly late. And at that point, I think I had already read a lot of other big kind of landmark graphic novels. I know I had already read Dark Knight Returns. I had probably read Watchmen, but at that point, I had probably read like V for Vendetta. You know, like I had like a lot of the big ones that you always hear about. Like I think I had read. So as a result, this didn't blow my mind like it might have if it was the first one I had read after reading a bunch of G.I. Joe and X-Men. But nevertheless, it was still really impressive, and it's still very impressive. That's why I still have it. It is a pretty remarkable creative achievement, and it's weird. I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but at least, especially right now, coming off of finishing a 3rd book, kind of knowing how arduous and challenging and almost lucky you are to get anything that's produced, that's shareable. Like to see something like this is one of those books. It's almost like the Akira thing back there where you just look at it and you're like, I don't even know how they did this. Like it's hard for me to even imagine how this comes to be. With so many moving parts, so much complexity, so much nuance, so much, it's an amazing thing that it even exists. So anyway, Mouse. Just for a random thing, another thing I'm not going to talk about too much because there's not a lot to say. Gods, Demons, and Symbols of Ancient Mesopotamia, an illustrated dictionary. This is a relic from the novel writing. The novel that I've talked in the past about how I have a novel that's about a 1/3 written that I was working on mostly in college and a few years after college. That I kind of always, my mind is never too far from it. Like I always think about it, but I haven't circled back and seriously worked on it for probably 15 years, maybe even 20, hard to say. But it was a fantasy novel. It is a fantasy novel. It is something that I someday, it's on my bucket list, I would like to finish it. But it's very much steeped in, it was a way for me to use my interest in folklore, mythology, world religions, all of that, and kind of use that for inspiration to create this world that is just steeped in legend and lore and gods and demons and just all this like mystical way of viewing the world. And to write that well, I felt like it was important to just read a bunch of stuff like this, like anything, because I didn't know where inspiration was going to come from. So I have probably a dozen books similar to this, not all on Mesopotamia, but like on different things like this, very narrow, where it's like lists of weird gods in Babylon or lists of weird, you know, whatever, where I was just reading all of those thinking like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, that's an interesting little story. How can I remix that into something? And I was just gathering all sorts of inspiration. This is one of those things. It's actually not a bad book. Like, it has lots of pictures of archaeological finds. It has diagrams of things, charts of symbols of the gods, just all sorts of strange, you know, and again, it's like just resources, just inspiration. Anytime it's like, I'm just looking for some kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. As a launching point, I would have a lot of books like these. And then finally, by Tom Robbins, Jitterbug Perfume, which is a very funny novel. Oh, do I still have the receipt for Jitterbug Perfume? I do. I bought Jitterbug Perfume at the Hastings in Flagstaff, September 13th, 1998. Anyway, I brought up Jitterbug Perfume last time when I was talking to Lori Calcaterra. We were talking about that Office thing that's Bears, Beats, or Battlestar Galactica, and I had picked Beats. I had mostly picked it. Well, I had purely picked Beats because Jitterbug Perfume opens with this kind of non sequitur ode to Beats, more or less, that I always just thought was funny and random and hilarious. There actually is some like through line, like it ends up being sort of meaningful, but it really is just this kind of random opening that has nothing to do with most of the story once you get into it. So I was going to read you a little bit of Jitterbug Perfume, Tom Robbins musing on Beats. I'm not going to read this whole opening. Well, maybe I will. It's only like a page. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. The beet is the most intense of vegetables. The radish admittedly is more feverish, but the fire of the radish is a cold fire, the fire of discontent, not of passion. Tomatoes are lusty enough, yet there runs through tomatoes an undercurrent of frivolity. Beets are deadly serious. Do you see why I like this? Slavic peoples get their physical characteristics from potatoes, their smoldering inquietude from radishes, their seriousness from beets. The beet is the melancholy vegetable, the one most willing to suffer. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. The beet is the murderer returned to the scene of the crime. The beet is what happens when the cherry finishes with the carrot. The beet is the ancient ancestor of the autumn moon, bearded, buried, all but fossilized. The dark green sails of the grounded moonboats stitched with veins of primordial plasma. The kite string that once connected to the moon to the earth, now a muddy whisker drilling desperately for rubies. The beet was Rasputin's favorite vegetable. You could see it in his eyes. Anyway, I'm going to save the rest of this, but I just love it. I just love this like ridiculous, passionate treatise on beets. Okay. Let's catch up on the chat here. Good morning, Christopher. Yes, that was good. People, if you're interested, especially if you're an Artcasters fan, seek out Christopher's latest stream, where his latest one-page comic idea involves the Artcasters. Joshua! Tomatoes are known for their frivolity. There we go. For my I'll do for my last live stream, I'll do Howl. Okay. We're caught up. So today I wanted to talk about well, first where I'm at with DvsM 79, which will allow me to segue into the specific topic. 79 is very, very close. There are 3 things left on my to-do list. 2 of the 3 are mostly there. There's one I haven't even taken a pass at yet. So those 3 things, in order of appearance in the book, I need to write an introduction. Every DvsM has an introduction. Introductions are a necessary part of DvsM. We're going to be talking about introductions today. I need to create a, without getting into spoilery specifics, a leaked document. That's another kind of staple of DvsM. Everyone has some kind of a leaked transcript, a leaked document, some weird artifact, whatever, that may or may not have appeared in the story. I think in 97, there was a bit of a phone transcript that was like a leaked classified transcription, and a document that Jenny was given to sign that she did not. Those are in the back. In 75, what was it in 75? It was a leaked document. Some leaked classified document. If I remember right. Wow. A long time ago. Anyway, so I got to do that. I got to do one for 79. I know exactly what it is. It's mostly done. Now it's just a little bit of like compositing something in Photoshop. So it's like I'm feeling fine with that. And then finally, a thank you page. Listing all the, calling out not everyone who helped somewhere along this journey, because there were too many and I'm certainly going to forget some, but at least like the people that must be recognized. People who stood around for reference photos, people who proofread scripts, people who looked over pages, people who let me cry on their shoulder when I was like, why do I do this to myself? You know, whatever. Like people who were very involved in one way or another in like, you know, this process. Boy, now I'm just sitting daydreaming about what that would be. Anyway, no, we're not going to do that. No. So I got to do that. That actually, even though I have not even started it, the thank you page, I don't expect it to take a lot of time, you know, because it's not craft writing like the rest of it. It's not like writing a script or writing an introduction. It's not writing fiction, basically. Like a thank you, like I don't have to worry about like what's the nice artful way to say this. Like that's not, you know, it's very much just like, hey, we did it again. End of yeah, I can just imagine some of this I won't actually use, but like you can imagine it's like end of a long journey. Oh, but maybe the meaning of the journey is the friends you make along the way. I don't know, whatever the gist of it will be. And then you start listing like this person did this person did this. These people were here for that, you know, whatever. It's not going to take very long. The big hazard of that is making sure I don't forget anybody, which that's why I'll sit on that for a couple days just to make sure. But introduction is the thing that I definitely want to finish, or at least feel like I have a close to final draft today. I have one. I would say I have like, I think I'm 2 drafts away from a final introduction with what I have. I think it's pretty much what I think it's going to be. It's like the basic ideas are in there. Now it's kind of arting it up a little bit, making it flow nicely. I don't know if the length is right. Like I got to figure out how much. I might just like test drop what I have right now into Illustrator in the format I need and see like where am I on length? Am I too long? Am I like, do I need? That'll help me kind of decide what I need to do with revisions. I'm going to have someone read it through, at least someone read it through and see is like, does this work? Does it do what I'm wanting it to do? Which we will talk about. I'm going to check on I see the chat scrolling, so I'm going to look at that again. Yes, the introduction, the pre-introduction, the anti-pre-introduction. Everybody is, you got to do thank yous. I mean, it's like the stupid memes that float around. The existence of a thank you page implies the existence of a you were no help at all page. How much of your day job has made it into DvsM? Well, fair amount in one form or another. See, this gets into, Jim and I lately have been talking a little bit. It started, I think, in his last Hey Man, How's Your Movie Going episode, talking about where do ideas come from. And then we talked about it a little bit more yesterday. I am of the opinion that creative ideas are all funhouse mirror versions of your own experiences in some way. That like the way I see it, there's no way, I am not like what we were talking about on Jim's thing. I am not along the line. I'm not of the opinion of the ancient Greeks where the ideas were received. You know, you channel your creativity. I believe it's actually completely the opposite. It is all internal. And in fact, all of everything you think you know, I was thinking about it. This sounds like a stoner thought. I swear to God, I don't smoke. But I was thinking like, the other day I was driving and I was like, you don't actually know anybody. The relationship you have with people is with the idea of them you have in your head. There is always this gap between the actual thing you're trying to relate to. If I'm looking at a flower outside, I've never seen the flower. I'm interpreting the image of the flower my brain put together. Like I've never actually directly known the flower. I've never directly known my parents. I've never, like, it's all like everything I'm experiencing is in here. There's input, which I never really directly get to know. My brain figures out what to do with that input, how to arrange it, categorize it, and shape it. And then I consciously relate to that. This is all like silly stoner stuff. But anyway, the point being, since I have that opinion, when it comes to creativity, it's all coming from me. It's all been cobbled together out of the compost of my experiences, of my own hallucination of the reality around me, whatever that reality may be or may not be. Now we're really going off track. Anyway, what was I talking about? So how much of the day job has made it into DvsM? A lot, but probably not recognizably to most people. Some of it I think I felt, because I see the connections. I know what I'm intending with it. There are things in DvsM where it's like, this is absolutely about this idea that I've had about my experience at my work or with a family member or with, it's some truth that I'm trying to explore in the creativity. Would someone who knows me be able to read these books and say, oh, he's talking about this? Like, I know Gary well enough. I think he's talking about this experience, or he's talking about this struggle, or he's talking about this idea, or I know this is something he's interested in, so he's kind of like circling that. I don't know. I've never actually sat down. I mean, it would be a weird, kind of narcissistic experience, I think, to give someone my books who knows me really well and say, what do you think I'm talking about? Like, I don't want to do that. But so that's why I don't know how much, to answer your question directly, how much of your day job is made in DvsM? A lot. And especially, I would say, this one that I'm finishing, 79. How apparent that is to anybody else, I don't know. I suspect not very. But if I connected the dots for people and said, like, well, this is me this is something I've thought about a lot and I wanted to work that into a story, then they would be like, oh yeah, no, okay, now I see it. I think. I don't know. God. That story, man. I'm losing. You know what, though? This guy, I can't even remember. He's got a weird last name. I couldn't even tell you what it is, even if I remembered it. To me, this and all the like classified documents in like Trump's resort and Biden's old place and Pence's place, like basically this whole thing of mishandled sensitive information. Sometimes kind of maliciously, deliberately, and sometimes just through sheer ineptitude or incompetence. I have to say, dovetails very nicely with a lot of the themes in DvsM, that they are not nearly as competent as we imagined in some conspiracy theories. This actually will probably come up again when I'm talking about the writing introductions for DvsM. With 75, I really wanted to make the point that the men in black aren't these weird, trans-dimensional, all-knowing, high-tech phantoms floating from like UFO sighting to UFO sighting, that they're like FBI agents. And they know a little bit about what's going on, but not everything. And it's very much, and I think this is also a consistent theme through all DvsMs, the ones I've done, the one that I'm getting ready to release, and all future ones, that even if you're talking about a weird alien dinosaur war, it is ultimately a very human endeavor. And I think that is like kind of the heart of, it's not the heart of DvsM, but it's a foundational idea in DvsM. That no matter what kind of crazy thing you can cook up, at the end of the day, you gotta pay someone to show up and do this job. And that, like, this kind of bullshit, this kid who's gonna enjoy Leavenworth, moron, like, what was to impress this dipshit, to impress even bigger dipshits in a video game group, is like, he ruined his life. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that he had this access, this 21-year-old, and now this is going to make me sound like an old guy, but that we're even letting 21-year-olds look at stuff like this is amazing to me. Having been 21, having known 21-year-olds, they shouldn't, like, I don't care who you're talking about. I've never met or heard tell of a 21-year-old that should be trusted with state secrets. They should barely be trusted to have safe sex. And we're showing them what's going on in Ukraine? Crazy. Crazy. I can't even believe it. Anyway, back on track. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I can't disclose. Yeah, that's true. It's an interesting question. I feel like I would reveal too many spoilers if I got into it. Let's see here. The Spartans. Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not hyperbolic to say. So, at least some people are going to die because of him. Because of him trying to impress some 16-year-old who plays Call of Duty. Like, this is why, and look, I'm really not like a, throw people in prison and throw away the key kind of guy. But this is unbelievable to me. Like, just the only thing that mitigates it for me is I have to imagine this kid is a moron, like just this, like just a complete idiot. And that's, I don't know if people saw my Facebook post, it almost is like, I don't know who I blame more, like this kid or the whole organization that allows this kid, first of all, doesn't vet this kid in any meaningful way. Like, bring someone in who's mentally, ethically, morally capable of behaving in this way. And then letting him have this kind of ridiculous access. Like, I don't know it's the analogy I used on Facebook. It's like if you showed up at Wells Fargo and the vault door is open and they've just got piles of cash in there, and you go and help yourself. Am I stealing? 100%. Should I be punished? Of course. But what the hell are they doing? Like, I mean, I don't know. If I'm at a restaurant and I need to go use the bathroom, and for whatever reason, it's like, I'm just going to leave my wallet on the table. I don't want to carry it with me. Just put it on there, go to the bathroom, come back, my wallet's gone. Did someone steal from me? Yes. Are they a thief? Yes. Should they get in trouble? Yes. Am I an idiot? Yes. Yes. I don't know if it mitigates what they did, but I think there's like, it's not the victim blame, but it's like, what the hell are you doing? I don't know. I can't even with this kid. Yeah, I didn't want to say his name, but Paul is getting into whether we've known people. I know, you're saying in the biblical sense. We know, we've seen the video. You've known people. Isn't it worse, though, that a moron was allowed? Yes. I mean, I don't know. It's debatable. And I'm not even saying that like, I mean, it really is debatable. Who is most at fault in this situation? Okay. If I get an Amazon delivery and I leave the box on my doorstep all weekend long and someone lifts it, who's the moron? We know who the thief is, but who's the idiot? Like, I don't know. I don't, it's kind of, I'm reluctant to say it's shared responsibility here. I think what really triggers me about this one, I didn't expect to talk about this at all or this much, but when I was trying to be a crime scene technician, I've told this story about how I did a polygraph exam. And I remember coming away from it thinking, like, it's amazing to me that they're spending this much time turning the screws on people who want to do this job to no good effect. Because I think I might have told the story when I told the polygraph story. At the same time, I was getting polygraphed to see if I was an acceptable crime scene technician. There was some like fireman and I'm not making this up. You can go and try and Google if you want, but there was some fireman locally who got busted for making a sex video with a goat or something crazy like that. And to me, it was like that guy had to do the same background check that I did. What are you morons doing? Like, what are you screening for? You're asking me about how many times I've smoked weed in my life. Apparently, you need to ask more questions about have you ever had sex with a goat on camera? Like, what? Like, and it made me so disgusted with their ineptitude. It awakened me. It opened my eyes to the reality that what they're screening for may not have anything to do with what would make you a good employee. And I think that's like, for example, I mean, the easiest example would be like, you know, when they're hiring for jobs and they're asking people like, how many times did you smoke weed in high school? Like, I think it's a very legitimate response, especially now when it's becoming more and more legal. Who the fuck cares? What difference does that make? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China, as my grandparents might have said? Like, what? I think all this effort is being wasted and should properly be spent on sussing out, is this a good person? And that, to me and maybe everyone who's listening, that seems like a no-brainer. But to some of these people, these agencies, that is a crazy, ridiculous idea. The idea that I've often thought that whether you're hiring for cops, whether you're hiring for something like this kid, whatever it is, what you should be trying to do is get them in a room and you really should be challenging them with some moral and ethical questions and really try and get to the root of what they believe and what they feel and why they even want this job. Why is it important to them? Like, do they want this job so they can feel like a big shot? So they can tell everybody, like, I get to look at top secret documents. That's a bad candidate. That's a terrible candidate. It's like if you're hiring, you know, cops and it's like, why do you want to be a cop? It's like, I think everybody needs to fly right. I'm gonna make sure they're minding their people. Like, basically, it's like, okay, so you're a bully. You're a bully, basically. You're a fascist. Like, what are you hiring for? And we're asking them how many times they smoked weed. It's lunacy. Anyway, I'm gonna try and move off of this. Let's say. Yes. No, and that's all. I mean, that's always my automatic thing. Is like there are people out there who think. Well, not only there are people who think we sort of like allowed 9/11 to happen, kind of like a Pearl Harbor, kind of we just let it happen because it would advance our interests. Leaving that aside for a second, which is like, there are people who think that 9/11 wasn't even, it was all like holograms and special effects and it never even actually happened and nobody died. There are people who think we faked the moon landing. There are people who think that the earth is flat and for some reason all the world's governments and scientists are invested in hiding that reality from the public. Setting aside how demonstrably idiotic all that is, okay? Or, you know, or that Dominion switched votes, like whatever, all this stuff. It's just ludicrous. But setting that all aside, setting aside the ludicrousness of it, the idea that this same government that let a 21-year-old leak some of our most sensitive secrets to a bunch of fucking gamers, and that it was actually days before this all-powerful government even seemed to notice that this was happening. You're telling me this is the government that killed JFK? Like, come on. Like, I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't. Where are we at? The chat's going crazy. I'm dropping all sorts of crazy fire today, and it's agitating the chat, probably. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's something that works. It's a miracle any of it works. It's that's right. Yeah, that's right. What about that goat? You know what? I bet that goat's never smoked weed. Probably eligible to hire. It's just stupid. I just blows my, every time I see that, where they, and by the way, I was eligible to hire, by the way. So this isn't like sour grapes. This wasn't like me being like, oh, they rejected me, and look at, but even if it was, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I know most of the questions they're asking the polygraph were like, how many times have you, what drugs have you done and how many times? Yeah, and how many times have you had a sex encounter in a car? Like they're looking at the stupidest things that, to me, granted, sort of a Che Guevara shirt wearing, liberal progressive nut or whatever they, absolutely meaningless. Tells you nothing about what kind of employee I would be. Absolutely zero. And meanwhile, you got cops out there offering to let a ticket slide in exchange for a sex act. What was their background check? What questions did you ask them? How did that get through? Every time one of these guys, hurt somebody during an arrest, is caught in some kind of a weird stealing something or sexual impropriety or something, it's almost like this kid where it's like, yeah, this kid should go to prison, but I think everyone around him who allowed him this access, I think, has hard questions to answer. Every time I see one of these cops act up, it's like, not only should he go away, everyone who is involved in the hiring, I have questions for. Like, you have one job. You have one job. And you blew it. You blew it. If I had that job, I would feel completely responsible if one of those slipped through. If I knew I had interviewed the guy who was trading, traffic tickets for blowjobs, like, that's on. How do you not take that as like, you screwed up? You failed. Is that person facing really hard questions about what exactly do you do here? Why do we pay you? And I suspect not. I suspect not, and that aggravates me. I think there needs to be a lot of pressure. Look, those people are totally responsible. Those people are the ones who did the bad thing. And those are the people that should rightly get most of the attention. But it's kind of like Wells Fargo, and I left the vault door open and people were just going and grabbing 100K here and there. Like, you have questions to answer too. I don't know. Oh my God, what's going on with me? I didn't expect to talk about any of this. I didn't even realize I cared this much about this, but I'm just like, it blows my mind. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the heart of a lot of it. Like, it all boils down to, you have to believe. For example, I've often thought that with like the people who want to come up with weird conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook or like any of these school shootings. I think it's because the idea that this was somehow engineered is less horrifying to them than the idea that this stuff can just happen, that we've created a situation where this is a possibility. I really do think it's avoidance. You have to believe, and I think Wait, now we're really getting into weed talk. I think this is where a lot of kind of religious rationalization comes from too. It's like you see stuff that's just very difficult to accept, and you think like, well, part of God's plan, I guess. You know, and it's like, to me, that is almost that's a benign equivalent of the government did it. You know, it's all, the point is, it's like there's a whole thing that's happening, and there's a purpose, there's a point. I think that's the same bottom line, right? I don't know. Everybody's liking the goat story. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. And it was right around when I was doing background. I'm thinking like, so you guys are really great at your job, I guess, huh? I saw that thing on the news. Good work. Good work. Maintaining a high level of integrity in the government employees. Okay, let's see here. A lot of goat conversation. Donkey energy. Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Yes. Not a fan. I had some goat curry once. I thought it was not very good. Goat Watson and Wells Fargo. Wow. All right. This is officially we're done here, folks. We're done. There's nothing left to do with the goat thing. All right. What I wanted to talk about today was writing introductions for DvsM. Now that we've solved all the world's problems, so every DvsM has an introduction. Because everyone has had an introduction so far, I'm kind of committed. That's the format of DvsM, where every future DvsM will have an introduction as well. I feel like, and I feel like they're necessary. Why do I think they're necessary? I don't know if this is fair or not, but I feel like DvsM's because they're, in my opinion, my humble opinion, not a lot of, it's not what you would normally expect of this kind of premise, all right? If people know like something about dinosaurs and Martians and top secret, like you go in with an expectation that's a little Mars Attacks-y or a little like old DC Comics, or, you know, it's like, and that's not what I'm presenting. And I think some of the role of the introduction is to set a tone and give you a better sense of what this is going to be. It is storytelling. It is part of the experience. If you're skipping the introduction, I never write it where like there's necessary information in the introduction, and if you don't read the introduction, like something in the comic's not going to make sense. I never do it like that. But I do write the introduction as a kind of appetizer for the story. I do write the introduction to try and orient the reader towards not just the story I'm about to tell, but the ideas or the themes or whatever that I think need to be underlined. Just to kind of, metaphorically, point your eyes in the right direction, if that makes sense. So, for example, DvsM 1975, and this is where we're going back to like the leaked document thing. I knew I had what I feel to this day was sort of a unique take on what a man in black is, what a man in black would look like, what a man in black would be. If you've watched like you know, the MIB movies with Will Smith, if you've seen, like, read the literature, I think you have a very, like, you have an expectation of what a Man in Black would be like that is not the kind of Man in Black I'm talking about. I'm talking about a Man in Black that is basically closer to an FBI agent than a weird black helicopter phantom boogeyman. Okay, like this is a guy who goes to work. Ruben is a guy who goes to work. George is a guy who goes to work. The Men in Black they have a weird job. It's something I've talked about in the past. It's a very, like, yes, they're exposed to a lot of weird secrets that most people don't know, but that's about it. At the end of the day, like, they're just guys. And as we've been talking about so far, like, working for a often incompetent, inefficient government that doesn't know everything. Okay. And so I didn't want people reading 75, flipping pages through it, waiting for Ruben to produce some ray gun or something, or, like, you know, to do something that is more what you think of for pop culture Men in Black. So I thought the role of the introduction when it came to 75, more than anything else, more than even just introducing the world of DvsM, which is what the introduction of 75 has to do. It's the very first book. It needs to make it clear to the reader that that's not what it was like. Okay, and that's why in the introduction, if you remember the introduction, or even if you don't, I'll basically boil it down for you. It's this point that the government at this time in 75 knows a teaspoon more about aliens than the public does. They have a little bit of information. They've got some pictures. They might have some wrecked ships from Roswell. They might have some, you know, they know a little bit of what's going on, but they're almost in as much of the dark as we are. They just know this much more, okay? Like, we've seen the Chinese spy balloon. The government hasn't. It's that sort of difference. Like, it's like, they're still maybe puzzling it out. They're like, well, so what does this do? Like, it's that kind of equivalent, all right? That was the role of the introduction of 75, is to set this tone of, like, this is what it's like. So now you're not expecting that when you're reading. You're not expecting Ruben to have a ray gun or to teleport someplace or to have flown a spaceship before, or to even have really maybe seen an alien that up close before. Like, a lot of his work, I think, until 75 has been like cleanup. Like, he shows up after someone saw something and he takes the report, and he kind of floats out some sort of mild threats about, you probably wouldn't want to be telling the story a lot. People are going to think you're a lunatic. You know, people who tell stories like this, I've seen it happen. They end up fired. Like, sometimes the wife gets impatient and leaves them because they can't stop talking about the alien thing. If I were you, like, you know, buddy to buddy here, man, I think I would just, like, ease off. I appreciate you telling me your story. If I were you, I would just walk away from it now. And they're like, oh, okay. And that's basically been his job until the events of 75, where now, like, something's changed. The aliens are behaving differently and it's all going off the rails. I needed to set the tone that this is just a dude who has a job, and it's not as exciting or cool as you might think, okay? That was the role of the introduction for 75. You figure that out by reading your book when you're done and trying to get a sense of, what do I want the reader to know going into this? What is going to enhance what I'm doing here? What's going to help what I'm doing here? And that was my takeaway when I read 75, was I need to emphasize that this is a fairly low-tech sci-fi thing. For 97, that's a story about an innocent bystander, a hapless eyewitness, who sees something she's not supposed to see and gets incarcerated and is trying to tell this story to somebody else. And, you know, events unfold from there. After I read 97, when I was done with it, I felt and this is something I knew when I was writing it, but it came out as more obvious when I read 97 with a little bit of distance, that if there is a theme that really runs through every part of this, it's moral and ethical dilemmas. It's being put in really difficult situations where there's no really obvious, easy, good answer. And you're kind of making the best of a bad situation. I feel like there was a lot of, not only with what Jenny faces, but with what Cynthia faces and what Ruben is sort of looking at in the end. It's this just complicated, weird, kind of morally ambiguous, ethically ambiguous situation where you feel like even the best outcome is not great. So I felt, to underline that, the introduction of 97 should kind of call attention and suggest the conflictedness that these people might have in just doing their jobs. That there is a lot of weird moral and ethical ambiguity, and it wears on them. Okay? I thought I'll work that into the introduction. That will help the reader kind of like introduce this idea, so now when you're reading it, it's kind of in the back of your head, and I think that will help. So now we're with 79. And without spoiling too much of 79, I'm at that point where I've now read through 79 and I've been thinking about it for a little bit. I haven't been drawing it for a few weeks. And I am sitting there thinking, like, what is something I think the reader needs to know that will help them, that will enhance this experience, or it'll focus their eyes in the right spot when we're going into reading this. Now, there are themes that are very obvious in 79 that I feel like I don't have to underline, that I don't have to highlight in the introduction. Some very surface level things that people are going to get. But I think just under that, the idea that I came across that I think like this is maybe worth a highlight is, and this is also why the story I'm telling in 79, why I put it as the third book, because I think it's a very good follow-up to the first two. And this is how. The first book is about a man in black, okay? A G-man. Like he is, when we talk about like, oh, it's the man. Ruben is the man. Like he is the government man. Like he is the true believer. He's a little conflicted, but he's very much like the guy. He's the government guy in the black suit that shows up that you don't really want to meet, okay? 97 is about a civilian, like a total innocent bystander, someone who had nothing to do with any of this. Wrong place, wrong time, okay? 79 is, to me, a hybrid. It is about civilians working for the government on difficult research problems. And I think that's sort of the interesting thing to highlight. Now, I have family that had top secret clearances and everything, which is also probably what triggers me about that kid. Worked as civilians for the military on like difficult research problems, okay, without getting into details. Because I've had that in my family, I know how that works. But it occurred to me that for some readers who have not had the benefit of that experience, it might be a new idea, this reality that the Army doesn't have scientists that are like, you know, lieutenants that are also scientists. The Navy doesn't have corporals that are also genetic engineers or computer programmers. When they have something they need to do, like how to make a predator drone understand what it's seeing when it's flying around and pick out a target, or how to interpret satellite data, or how to, you know, whatever, like complicated scientific problems that require a lot of math, a lot of physics, engineers, things like that. Those aren't soldiers doing that. That's not the Army in the way we think of it. They're finding PhDs somewhere and hiring them to work on the problem. Oppenheimer wasn't Army. He wasn't Navy. He wasn't Air Force. He wasn't any, like, Oppenheimer was a scientist. Like, all those people who worked on the atom bomb, they're scientists, university types. And that there's a huge culture difference with that. And I think that's something we're going to be seeing in 79, since 79 is, so 75, Man in Black focused. 97, innocent bystander focused. 79 is scientist focused. I think that's the thing, in my opinion, now looking at it and writing the introduction, that's the thing to underline. That these people are weird liminal characters. They're not exactly like Jenny. They're not just hapless and helpless, but they're not like Reuben either. They're in between. They've got a foot in both worlds. They are working for the government, but they're not the government. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of think about that in the context of, it's 1979. We're less than 10 years from Vietnam. We're less than 10 years from Watergate. Like, but we're also fully in the Cold War, and less than, what? Less than 30 years from World War II. And I like the idea that really you would have two cultures kind of living side by side. You would have the Fed culture that is kind of that Cold War era, post-World War II, like the Reuben types. That are a lot of them, they're all ex-military, they've been in government their entire lives. The only employer they've ever had is the government, okay? And then you have these scientists who, and I think this might spoil a line that I have in my introduction, but like, when Reuben was, you know, in the jungles in Vietnam, like some of the people in 79 were burning their draft cards and smoking dope. Like how different those worlds are. And how like there's kind of an interesting tension and friction there, where like you get some of that anti-government sentiment from these scientists that are working for the government. I was very interested in that kind of weird conflictedness in 79. This idea that you would have these people who, they don't even know if they believe in what they're doing. And they certainly don't know if they believe in the people they work for, but they have a mission, they have a job to do, and they're trying to accomplish it. I thought that's sort of maybe the interesting idea that's worth underlining, worth highlighting in the introduction. So that's the introduction I'm trying to write. I think I'm almost there. I don't know if this is interesting or helpful to people, but like, this is sort of the theory of DvsM introductions. To look at the story I'm telling, and what is an introduction I can write that will, like if we're doing a moonshot, assuming the moon landing wasn't faked, if we're doing a moonshot, and we got to figure out the angle of our rocket. Like that's what the introduction is doing. I'm trying to get you to the moon, which is whatever ideas I have in my story. The introduction is like kind of aiming it. It's getting you oriented right. So on page 1, you are headed in the right direction. I think that's all I have to say about that. Let's see here. Then I see I have someone in the green room, but I want to make sure, I want to catch up on the chat before. Oh my gosh. Okay. Everyone appreciated the GOAT conversation. Wow. Wow. Keep going. It just keeps coming. Let's see here. Boy. Looks like, you know, in a way I missed so much, but didn't miss a lot. Yeah. You sound like you're trying to keep it in real. That's how it feels a little bit today. But I'm glad we have a energetic group. Wow. Wow. Okay. Technically, dude, let's say. You know, if DvsM, you know, so to read, for anyone who's listening, Christopher says you could technically do an episode where the agents are just filling out paperwork. If DvsM was like a 48 issue series instead of 6, I would absolutely burn an issue with something like this. Like to me, that's perfectly fitting. Or something where it's just like bureaucratic nonsense, which I think, you know, when I did a little sneak preview of 79, I think a few months ago, where I was talking about introducing new characters. And you saw Dr. Wagner, and you saw her little tense moment with Fitz, who's this kind of old cranky guy in the facility, where you get the impression that they've done 15 rounds many times, you know, that they just don't. I think if I was doing like 50 issues of DvsM, there would be issues that were just inter-office politics. Again, going back to the thing I said almost on the outset, that DvsM, I think one of the points of it, one of the ideas in it, if I had to write an introduction to all of DvsM, not just a specific issue, it would be emphasizing this point that even if you are employed in the endeavor of dealing with an alien incursion through use of genetically recreated dinosaurs in a top secret conflict around the globe in all the little small towns and wilderness places of the country, it's still ultimately, where rubber meets the road, it's a human endeavor. And therefore all the normal things that happen with people would also happen there. Let's see. Fucking Paul. Yeah, claims that would be a thing too. Okay. More goat stuff. Paperwork in triplicate. Did you staple in the right place? Yeah. Which, you know, is part of why one of the things I liked about that Loki series, at least initially in it, was that it showed, like, so there's, yes, the time variance authority and control of, like, making sure that there, like, all the multiverse doesn't explode. And it looks like this bureaucratic nightmare. It looks like a bad dream. It's just a bunch of guys in this weird MCM office filing paperwork. I think they do. I don't think it gets paid for. They get like an allowance. And though it's not obvious, I think Ruben is a little bit of a clothes horse. So he's always spending more than his allowance. I think some of the men in black, like George, for example, George, I think, is looking like, I'm just pocketing my allowance because I have a suit from 15 years ago that's still good. You know, I think that's George. But I think Ruben is like, anytime a new like suit allowance thing comes in, he's got like a tie and some shoes and a new jacket to pick out, and like he's excited to do that. But it must be black. For reasons I probably will never explore, for some reason they're bent out of shape. Like, no, it's black. Black is the uniform. Okay, let's see here. I'm scanning to see. Yeah, I am. I'm screening goat jokes. Let's say here. Yeah, you would get screwed with the allowance, because I imagine if you're a man in black and they're giving you an allowance, some kind of stipend for regular, like maybe every 4 years, they're giving you money for a suit. Just again, this is the DvsM idea, more realistic. I imagine it's never going to be enough, even if you don't have an unusual requirement. Like, so for today, modern day, I don't know, what is a suit? I haven't bought a suit in a few years. What's a normal suit for a price for a man's suit? What, $250? What would I don't know. Let's just say, if that's the amount, I imagine if you're a man in black, the stipend they give you is $150, like something like that, where it's like, what am I supposed to? It's just offsets. Like maybe you could find a discount suit somewhere, and that's what I think a lot of the men in black do. But Ruben is like, this is $150 off the $500 suit I've been eyeing, like, because I think Ruben likes to spend money on clothes, I think. Okay. Now I'm going to let in my guest. You all know him from Hey Man, How's Your Movie Going? And countless other great creative endeavors. It is the one and the only Jim Lujan.
Hello, Gary.
Hello, Jim.
I've been nominated to apologize to you on behalf of the chat. Our behavior was both immature and imbecile. I think it's imbecile. I'm trying to sign that word out.
Yes.
Your points were valid and well thought out.
Yes.
I apologize on behalf of myself, Paul, Josh, Chris, and all of the other. Is asshole? Was that or
right? Sure.
You get it.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and I accept your apology delivered on behalf of the entire chat. Thank you.
And the goat.
And yes. Perhaps we should acknowledge that the goat is arguably the victim in that whole scenario and deserves our compassion and understanding, not our mockery.
You saw how that goat was dressed. It was asking for it.
Asking for it. It knew what it was coming over for.
Goats come prancing around. You know, if a goat shows up at my hotel room at 1:30 a.m.
Don't tell me you didn't know what was going to happen.
And I answer the door in a robe, then it's goat time.
To talk to it about a part in your upcoming goat movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's anyways, but
there's no victim here.
On behalf of the goats, I apologize. But it is a very sweat hog vibe today. You're Mr. Cotter. You're actually with a substitute teacher that we're it's just a bad mix of people. I think we all can agree that everybody in the chat is just a horrible human being. And we're the worst thing about the internet. Right, guys? Yeah, see, they agree.
They all 100%.
Anyways, I was laughing literally out loud at some of the comments. And trying to listen to you at the same time, but mainly laughing at the comments.
Paul Pate saw a thing the other day. Flat earthers think the moon landing is fake because the moon is not solid. Sometimes you can see through it. Those flat earthers, they are giants among men.
Why does the earth have to be flat? Why can't it be like lumpy earth?
I think it all boils down to a religious thing, right? Like it's all because like 4 corners of the earth in the Bible or something. Like there's no like legitimate. It's all just like it's a weird. Like you go down like why do you think this?
You know what? I don't care if you're a flat earther, a round earther, or a no earther.
Yeah.
You just need to be a good person on this earth, and I think we all agree.
I disagree. You can be a good person and think the earth is flat, and I still.
Why are you disagreeing? I'm not Josh. Come on. You save that.
That's right. That's right. I disagree. With everything.
I also did want to say 2 things. One is shout out to Al Jaffe.
Oh yes.
102. One of my
102. Yeah.
And the second thing I want to say is I'm extremely excited to read your book, but I would like to read it early, but not too early. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to proofread it. For one, you don't want me proofreading anything. You'd be like, oh yeah, there's 3 R's in that word, right? It's a 4-letter word. But I do want to read it early at some point. I do want to get like a sneak peek of it.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'll see if I can figure that out. I will need someone to, maybe multiple someones, to read over the introduction. So that could be a tease for you if you want to help me with that.
Okay. Yeah. Just as long as I'm not spell checking.
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that to you. No. Yeah.
All right. I will take out all the racial slurs and.
Okay. Yes, please do that. Yeah.
One of the other questions I had for you today is, how come you never show your mug off on camera?
Oh, here.
Never. People don't even know you have a mug. Oh yeah.
Look at that. That's a Corey Kerr original.
Corey Kerr mug.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't have a Lujan mug yet.
No, your mug, your DvsM mug. You have a.
I never ordered one. I never ordered one for myself.
Okay, Gary, the first step is believing.
And I keep forgetting to add the link to here. I should probably add here. Let me find the link to put in the chat. Hold on. Let's see here. Where is that? I think it's Redbubble. If you want, why am I not seeing my link?
By the way, how come nobody in the chat today has written the words "suck my tongue"? I thought that was going to be the new catchphrase of the 2020s.
Yeah, that's boy. That was something.
That's a whole nother thing.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. If anyone would like to support DvsM by way of showing off a coffee mug.
And let me just I want to definitely add my 2 cents to this, that not only is the mug beautiful, but it's extremely, extremely expensive.
It is. It's Redbubble prices, so it's like
way overpriced, but we don't have any control of them. But
we don't.
Once you have it, and Josh can attest to this, when you smash it on the ground, it is such a good feeling. No,
I can tell you, to make it as cheap as possible, I lowered my, you can set how much money you get off of it. And I set it as low, I think, as you can. Like, they don't let you go to nothing, and it's still like $17 or something.
I know. I'm the same way. I felt really bad. I want to buy everybody a mug and send everybody a mug, but it's like.
You can do that. There's also, but really, I mean, buying a mug would be great.
I feel it does make me a little bit sad. Josh had the swizzle stick mug for so long. He had it for a long time, and then it broke.
Oh.
I think somebody came over and broke it myself.
Could be.
But Wait, where's the mug? Show your mug. Are you looking it up? It's a beautiful
I dropped the link in the chat.
And can't you preview it? Can't you share your screen and preview our mug?
Let's see. Hold on.
Once you do that, you're going to see sales are going to triple. Double. Okay. They're at least double, triple, maybe quadruple.
Let's see. Okay. I know this is possible, but, I'm old.
And you need to order your own mug, too. So you need to drink out of your own mug, as well as Corey's, because that's a fine quality mug. But it would be good to show off your own.
Are you seeing that?
Yes. Zoom in on that mugster.
Well, that's as zoomed in as it gets right there.
No, I thought you could. Isn't there? Oh, it's when you share a file.
Yeah.
If you screenshot, there you go. There you go.
That's the image on the mug from 75. Blake looking at the sport model craft.
Go now. There you go. There's a zoom.
Really cool. Gives you an impression.
That's a good looking mug. It's cool that you built that shelf and bought those salt shakers.
I did all of it.
Does it come with those too?
All right. So
Paul has a question. He says, "Does the mug do a good job of holding coffee?"
It does.
It does.
In fact, I believe it's the primary purpose of it. Yeah. So.
Oh, but you could also put pens in it.
You could. You could soak your brushes in it. You could do,
pennies,
yeah, you could do all sorts of things.
pennies in it.
Yeah,
Pennies that you take off the eyes of dead hobos.
that's right.
You could fill it with those
before they're piled onto the funeral pyre.
Yes.
It's
good
because this is 1758 or something.
Hey, chat, what are some of the other things you could put in the mug? I'm just curious because I know our chat's today is very helpful and educated about mug dispensing.
Christopher, to answer your question, yes, the mug is multi-purpose. Anything can be put in it. Any liquid.
This mug has all 3 dimensions, right?
Yes.
It's
not like a lot of mugs you buy online
that are just flat, like pieces of paper.
Just a photograph. Many a time I thought I was buying a new mug and a photograph of the mug showed up. Not this. This is an actual mug.
Yeah. Christopher wants to know, can he drink tea out of the mug? I'm not sure.
You can.
You probably should check with the manufacturer.
I mean, yeah, I would double check to be safe. But my understanding is that any consumable liquid could be put in the mug.
Okay. Could you put like screws in a mug? Like fill it with screws?
You could. You could. Yes.
Damn, Gary.
I know.
5 things you can do with this mug.
See, this is why it's $17. I mean, it's, you know.
$17? That's amazing. Gary, do you know how much money it would cost me to drive to China and get a mug?
And they'll just send it to you.
Oh my God! To my door?
That's actually I'm burying the lead here. I guess this mug is handmade in China. It's a Chinese import mug. Think of that.
Wait a minute. Wait. Okay, hold on a minute.
Yes.
You're telling me
that
this mug that I could not only put liquids into, but screws and pennies off of dead hobo's eyeballs, I can get this mug to my doorstep for $17. Gary, are you kidding now? Are you making funny jokes?
A mug made with exotic Chinese craftsmanship. Wow. Not just some mug made around the corner. This is a mug from the far end of the world.
Gosh, thousands of years of craftsmanship, and those skills are going, no pun intended, but they're being poured into this mug with care and.
I think you intended that pun, actually. I think you did.
Oh my God. I can't accept the reality of this is too great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, and did you say where they can order that mug?
On my Redbubble. And the link that I shared in the chat. You can also get various prints, posters. You can get, it's Redbubble. You can get any of these images put on any sort of product, and you know.
If I order a mug, can I do a reaction video if I'm really disappointed? Like this mug's like, all it does is it's just sits there, like, you know.
Are you saying, can you get the mug and do an hour-long negative review of it?
Yeah, that's rational, right?
It's totally a normal thing that
going to do that.
Reasonable, nice people do. Yeah.
After all this buildup, for sure. So, I'm glad my mug talk has really brought you the joy that you needed out of this mug.
Thank
so everybody go order a mug. Do I get a cut, by the way?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
For every mug sale going forward, I will.
How many mugs are you going to order, Leanne?
I will give Jim 10% of the proceeds, which again, with narrow margins, will probably be about 10 cents. Or
Leanne says she's going to order 1 mug. She showed me because she lifted 1 finger up. So,
but the biggest finger, like a really, yeah,
a bigger mug than the regular size mug.
Right. She's going to overnight it because she really indicated.
Thank you, Leanne. Okay. Well, anyways, I want to say thank you for mugs and DvsM. I can't wait to read the book. And
I'm glad it's close. So I guess in something, you know, once I get the introduction done and the thank you page and the leaked classified item, I think all of those things could conceivably get done this weekend.
Have you ever thought
Which means I would like to be maybe placing a print order early next week.
Have you ever thought about on the introduction pages having like a Muppet introduction? like Ralph the dog going like pulling a curtain back, and then like some Muppets like.
I have thought about it. Yeah,
that would be cool.
I haven't done it, but I've thought about it.
Yeah. A lot of kids would buy the book if you did that. So, anyways, on behalf of the Muppets and the Sweat Hogs and the Mug contingency of the
what is a sweat hog, by the way? What is
what a sweat hog is?
No.
You don't know what a sweat hog is.
No,
John Travolta is a sweat hog. It's
is it a Welcome Back Kotter thing?
Yes, Welcome Back Kotter. They were the kids that were 35 years old in high school.
Yes. None of them looked anywhere near
as old as Gabe Kaplan, their teacher. And
right.
They were sweat hogs, and they were like, "Hey, my name is Juan Epstein. I'm a Puerto Rican Jew." You know,
I didn't remember that bit. I watched Welcome Back, Kotter. I forgot. I didn't remember that at all. But
a little side note before I go: Juan Epstein, when I was a little kid, was like sort of like a TV hero.
Epstein.
Epstein, his name was, and I thought he was the funniest guy on that show. You know, and he used to wear a handkerchief, a blue handkerchief, tied to his back pocket, like his back, jean pocket, and it, and I thought that was so cool. And then one day I found at home, I found a blue thing, and I think I did that in fifth grade. And then my friend Dennis goes, "Don't do that. The Crips do that. They're gonna kill you." And 5-year-old
reminds me. So So what year would that have been?
And when I was in fifth grade.
Yeah.
80. Well, I never finished fifth grade, so I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
80. How old are you in fifth grade? 10? It's probably 1980.
10 or 11. 10 or 11.
81, 82, around then.
81. Okay, so that was much earlier. But you were in California. Okay, so
yeah,
the whole blood Crip thing didn't really get to the Phoenix area. It never really did, but it didn't really.
In Indians, right?
What? Yeah, that was late, but. The blood Crip thing, we were never even really thinking or aware of that until late 80s when I was in high school.
Really?
And I remember, I can't say I think about it often, but it's a thought that it's not one of those childhood memories that sometimes you forget and someone brings it up. It's like, oh yeah, no, this one I always remember. I was riding the city bus to high school. I was going to Brophy College Preparatory, so I was wearing, as a Jesuit high school, I'm wearing khakis and like a red polo shirt. And on the bus, I was sitting across facing the most enormous black person I've ever seen in my life. Just this hulking man. And he's staring at me. And I'm trying to kind of look anywhere but at him. Like I'm just, trying to act oblivious to his staring. And finally he leans toward me and he goes like this. And I kind of, he's like,
did he say suck my tongue? Oh,
that would have been preferable. No, he said, he's like, I don't like your shirt. And I'm wearing this red shirt. And I noticed now he's wearing like blue and purple and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, and I think I might have managed something like, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. And he's like, I don't like it at all. And he goes, and spits on my shoe.
What?
Yeah.
But get ready for what a badass I was. Ding! And got off at the next stop.
You showed him.
He'll never forget me.
Gary, why didn't you stab him in the eye with a pencil?
I know. I should have just gotten into a brawl with him.
I mean,
I was probably 115 pounds.
Says the kid who at 9 years old had a little stack of quarters on the Pac-Man machine, and some older cholos came and just went. They took it off and they didn't even run. They walked away with it. They walked casually away with it.
Right.
I was thinking, and those cholos were Scott Circlin and Josh Kimball.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
I'm glad you called them out. But no, it's funny. I don't know what made me think of it the other day. Sometimes you hear, you'll see in a dipshit meme or something what if you could go back knowing what you know now and do it all? It's that sounds like hell. Like, I did not enjoy, like, when was the last time you had to worry about someone spitting on your shoe because of the shirt you were wearing? Like, I haven't had to worry about that in like 30 years.
When
And
Leanne and I went to a wedding, she didn't like what I was wearing. So.
that's true. Yeah. But did she spit on your shoe? Did
Yeah.
she?
She said, "What up, blood?" Like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Josh, you push if you have a bell. If we have a bell to ring for, like, look at that.
Oh, I owe you a dime. I owe you your cut.
Wow. That's
I lit him. I didn't. I was watching it in slow motion. Like, I couldn't even believe what was happening. I've never been in a situation like that before, and I cannot. There was a reason I called out the enormousness of this guy, and believe me, as little as I was scrappy as a kid. Like, I was always the littlest kid, so I always found, like, I think I learned in 6th or 7th grade, like, the way you stop that is to be like ready to swing for someone as soon as they start screwing with you. Like, just like, that's the way to shut that down. No one actually wants to fight. This dude would have been totally comfortable fighting. And I was like, no. I'm out. Goodbye. Thank you.
Josh, that just
thank you, sir.
Josh just said, "Where are you from, Jim?" I don't know. I'm intimidated. Don't do that. Stop.
Yeah, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
No, I'm not even pretending to be any kind of tough guy.
No, I didn't. But then I think I told you this story before too. There was another time where I was accidentally a badass, where I was in an arcade with my friend Javier Garcia. I was watching him play a game. I got bored. I made a loop around the arcade to look at other things. Came back to him. And while I was standing with him, continuing to watch him play, you used the word, this cholo shows up. And he goes, "Hey," and he was like not a giant guy, like, so I wasn't intimidated at all. He goes, "Hey, you looking at my girlfriend?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You were looking at my girlfriend." I was like, "Who's your girlfriend?" Like, I was honestly totally confused. And he's like, "Over there, you're looking at my girlfriend." And it's some girl, like, playing a video game that must have, when I walked around, he must have thought that maybe I was casing her. So I don't know what he thought. But I was like, no, man, I was just looking at the game. And I must have kind of been very dismissive about it, where he was like, "Oh, you've got a bunch of attitude." This guy just wanted to start something. And I was, for whatever reason, totally unimpressed. I was like, "Man, just back off. Just go stand with your girlfriend. Just back off." And I just, like, immediately just, like, "Get the fuck out of here." Whatever. And like, he leaves, and Javier, he was like, "We got to get out of here." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, that guy, didn't you see?" And I was like, "See what?" And he's like, "When he was asking you if you were a badass, he lifted his shirt and he had a pistol in his belt. And you told him, it's like, just get out of here. Just go stand with your girlfriend." Like, while after he showed me a gun, I didn't even see it. I was like, "What? He had a gun?" So then we got the hell out of there too. There's a few stories of my youth of escape.
I remember one time my friend Daryl was a pretty big dude. He was riding the bus one time, and there was this little punk that had this red shirt on. He just spit right on that kid's shoe. I don't ever know what happened to him, but pretty sure he's dead. So.
Could be dead.
Yeah, could be dead.
Could be.
Oh my God.
Know.
Okay, so we've sold a mug.
We sold a mug.
We've covered the intro. We've got the apology for the immature chat.
For the chat behavior
that those guys in the chat did. I'm so offended. And then now, what's next on the agenda?
We talked about goats. I think that's about it. I think, what's going on with you? What's your plan this weekend?
Today's a home day. So my ankle bracelet has just got new batteries in it, so they can monitor me. So nice. That's good. Tomorrow, Leanne and I are going to go to a local coffee spot that we go to and hang out there. I don't know if you're doing work or fun, but and I'm going to work on the film while I'm there. But today's just hang out, eat at home, be good Americans, and this is it. This was my one interaction with the outside world.
Well, I'm flattered.
So this is it. So that's and then Joshua also apologizes, and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
and then I'm drawing Scott with Robert
I
Smith.
I am not sure yet, but I might at 7 p.m. Pacific tomorrow do another hey man, how's your movie going? Because I might
Excellent.
because if depending on what I do today and tomorrow, I might have a good update. I already actually told you I have a really good update
Mhm.
from
You
the
do?
last time. So,
Yeah.
and then lastly, I just wanted to say everybody that's seen our conversation and the level of our conversation is what our private phone calls are like. Exactly like this.
Pretty much. It is pretty much like this.
Solos grabbing quarters off of,
Just thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That's a lesson learned.
Arcades were, it's funny. I mean, there are far more dangerous places to hang out in the 80s and 90s. But arcades, I mean, that was things went down in arcades.
Did you have a mall?
Teenage boys, you got money, you got things can go sideways.
Did you have a arcade in a mall growing up ever? Those were the
best. But also the one I went to most often was the locals will remember this, especially if they're my age. Video Roundup, which was a standalone. And it had half of it was like a pool hall, and the other half was arcade games.
We had an arcade on my block. This old man in his garage, he would have. It was weird. It was just me, and he would give me this arcade juice. Did you ever drink arcade juice?
Yeah. It tasted funny. It was a little bit like grape juice, but had a Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's so many. I'll tell you off air the other jokes I was going to make, but they're horrible. The things that come to my mind are not. They're not airworthy.
No.
It was going to have something to do with Pac-Man sound effects, but I'm not going to say that. So we're going to keep it classy here.
No, please. I don't even need to hear it off air. I think I'm good.
Oh, you like this one?
No. I think I'm fine. The premise was enough where I was like, okay, I know where this is going.
By the way, last thing I'll say. Last thing is Leanne insists that Miss Pac-Man's the greatest video game ever created.
Miss Pac-Man, I would 100% agree that Miss Pac-Man is superior to Pac-Man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is interesting to me because we also had a Fashion Square mall. Does every major city have a Fashion Square mall?
They had a Fashion Plaza, it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
I know, isn't that the Fashion Plaza?
It's kind of strange. I mean, yeah, it's such a weird, why is this a name that's good enough to reuse?
Everybody give a shout out to your mall. Come on, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So the key malls when I was a kid, there was Scottsdale Fashion Park. Or no, actually, it was Scottsdale Fashion Plaza, Biltmore Fashion Park, Paradise Valley Mall, and Metro Center.
What was yours?
Montclair Plaza.
Montclair Plaza was Leanne's.
Montclair Plaza.
We had the Indian Hill Mall, which was weird. It was a hill with Indians on it, and you had to. Anyways, and then there was the Eastland Plaza, which was just a generic name. That's where I grew up. But the Fashion Plaza, a lot of people knew about in West Covina and the surrounding areas knew about the Fashion Plaza. Like you would say West Covina in the 80s, and they go, "Oh, is that where the Fashion Plaza is?" They wouldn't say, "Oh, is that where that serial killer Jim, who's yet to be caught, lives?" And they're like,
oh, now I think there was another mall, and actually it's one of my favorites. It's one that I nearly got arrested at by mall security. And it sounds to me like a mall that would be in a Jim Lujan production. It was Los Arcos Mall.
Los Arcos. That sounds like Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could. It's very much a Southwest name for a mall.
Christopher says that his mall, and he's not kidding, he says it was called Smuggler's Alley.
What?
Smuggler's Alley. Isn't that that sounds like a Harrison Ford movie from 1989.
It sounds like something that would be in a Star Wars comic. But
here's Alley. Wow.
Weird.
All the goods that were smuggled into the country. So
yeah.
I'm curious, Josh, in Long Beach, what was the big mall in Long Beach?
What was the mall?
In the LBC.
I feel bad. I mean, it's one of the many things I feel bad for kids today that they don't get to have that experience of going to the food court, leering at your high school girl objects of your desire, like at the Orange Julius, and then going to the arcade or something. That's just, I don't know, that's a simple joy that they don't have.
So you know the what's that effect? Not the butterfly effect. The one wherever you think the Mandela effect.
Yes.
So I have the Mandela effect with Orange Julius. Now that you mention it,
Strawberry.
so I went with my mom to the mall. I was probably, I don't know, 38, 39. Okay, no, I was probably 10 years old, and we went. She goes, "You want an Orange Julius?" And I love those. I'm like, "Yeah." And I was really hungry, and they were making pizza dogs, and I got one, and it was the greatest thing I had ever had. And then
Orange Julius had pizza dogs?
well, listen to this. This is the Mandela effect. Then I went back a couple years later, and I was like, "I want a pizza dog," and the girl was like, "We don't have pizza dogs."
What are you talking about?
Like I was like, "Yeah, you do," and I to this day could not find the Orange Julius. And then I bet you if I found it, it wouldn't even be the same as it was. Maybe it was a limited thing, but it was the greatest. I wish Orange Julius.
You're positive it wasn't the thing next to Orange Julius. It wasn't you got an Orange Julius and a pizza dog from a different place.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was Orange Julius. It was at
I don't remember any food at Orange Julius.
Yeah.
It was always just.
Can
Do
we
you
tell-
remember? You'll see. You're old enough to remember where you used to be able to get a raw egg added to your Orange Julius.
Oh yeah. I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there was like maybe a salmonella scare or something, and they like stopped doing that. But
Orange Julius is the best. They're so good. We should go get
it was really good. That was a necessary stop.
Leanne likes Strawberry Julius.
Yep.
Yes.
She likes Strawberry Julius and Miss Pac-Man.
That sounds like the 80s to me.
Yeah.
That's like
And
that.
Josh had the Long Beach Town Center, which just sounds like stabbings would happen there. I don't know if that's.
It does sound like a place where.
Well,
our scary mall. So what was your scary mall? Our scary mall was Metro Center. Metro Center, and Scott will remember Metro Center. Metro Center is where shit went down. Like that's where.
That Los Arcos sounds scary, but
Los Arcos actually wasn't. It sounds like it would be, but it was in South Scottsdale. Scottsdale is one of the nicer areas in the Phoenix area, so it was actually pretty tame.
West Covina didn't have a scary mall, but we did have. In the early 80s, the Eastland Center was the most depressing outdoor mall. For one, we have an outdoor mall. That's kind of weird. But it was just weird. They had weird shops that nobody ever would go to, like a shop that would sell like, we sell nothing but pillow casings, you know. It wasn't like a young people's mall. It was like the mall where mall shoppers go to, like they just go to die there.
Yeah. I like this. We also had the Galleria Mall that was nicknamed the Gonorrhea Mall. We also had a Galleria. All these recycled.
Yeah. Well, now the surrounding areas from where I grew up, if you go west, that's the mecca of malls, like Sherman Oaks Galleria, Glendale Galleria, all the stuff towards LA. That's where all the Valley Girl Mall stuff came from.
Yeah.
But West Covina, we're kind of like we're on the outskirts, on the outer rim. So we're the gateway to the Inland Empire. So.
This was, let's see here. Scott, I do remember Scott and I talking about creepy arcade stories. And I do that was Metro Center. I think I remember the story I was telling.
That was the Fancy Lights.
I didn't like going to Metro Center because I didn't like how dodgy it was. I liked going to Paradise Valley Mall, which, as you can hear from the name, was sort of a fancy part of town. It was I always felt like I was getting away with something by going to Paradise Valley Mall. Like they were gonna say like, "Oh, what zip code do you live in?" No, you're out of here, kid. Like it just seemed like it was a little nicer. It felt, I don't know.
Josh says in the AV. That's the Antelope Valley. The kerning is so bad on our mall that it reads the Antelope ML.
ML. Oh, we should go by the ML.
Yeah, it's very exotic.
Antelope.
Yeah. By the way, Antelope Valley. That just sounds so far, but it's not as far as it sounds, but it's pretty far.
Yeah, bad kerning is. The one that bugs me, especially after having a job like Josh has or like that I had at the stationery company. The one that bugs me is when they don't optically kern cursive fonts. So like the stems don't connect. You'll see like it'll go like L, and then it'll stop, and there'll be a gap, and then A. You know, like they're not actually connected. It drives me bananas. It's too much.
I know this is going to open a tangent, but can you fully comfortably write cursive, a whole page in cursive if you needed to?
I think I could. Yeah, I don't do it very often.
But I said comfortably. Like, or would you have to stop and go, oh wait,
No, I could, but I've never done it enough. This is something I've talked about with other people. Because I've never used a lot of cursive, to me, mine looks very childlike. It looks very much like the practice book. Like it's very, you know, it's so, and I don't feel like I ever developed a personality with my cursive. It looks very school booky to me, so I don't like do. Like I feel dumb if I do a lot of cursive. It just looks to me like a 13-year-old did it. But.
Yeah. Well, for one, I don't know why you're collecting 13-year-olds cursives, but that's, you know, that's cool. Whether it's between you and the law.
Yeah.
And then Josh had mentioned that he says, if I'm driving or just walking around town and I see poor Kerning, I'm filled with designer rage.
Designer rage.
I just picture him. He's going to start seeking it out now.
Yeah.
With like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Standing in front of a shop.
Right. I did you a favor.
It'd be a shame if something would have happened to your pretty little sign there.
Right.
Yeah. I couldn't, and Paul says I couldn't write cursive even if I was sober. Did he write sober or saber? That's my eyes. Sober.
He said sober. Actually, now that I think of it, what's even more of a pet peeve, and this you see all the time in business names, is improper apostrophe use. Either a lack of or inappropriately. Like they'll pluralize something and pluralize it with an apostrophe S. Like and you'll see that in business names. Like if you know, and I just sit and think about how that's probably in the filing with the government. This is the name of our new business. You know,
what's an apostrophe?
Boxes and more, and it'd be box apostrophe S and more. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Yes, I can write old school illuminated manuscripts level cursive. Only if I have a ostrich feather quill pen, I can do that.
That's required. You need to be right.
Yeah. Let me jump out of the chat so that I'm not the guy that ruined your chat and made you go off air, so that I could say, okay, I just popped in to say hi, and then I could look like I'm busy and important.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Well, I think
Al Jaffe too. R.I.P.
Yeah, that's 102 is a pretty incredible run, though.
Yeah.
What was his health like? Was he active toward the end, or was he like
he was active up until like 100 or 99.
That's
but he was still drawing and everything. And
I mean, we should all be so lucky. That's not bad.
Yeah. You know how he died too? That was crazy. It was a great white shark.
I was gonna say I thought it was goat related.
Well, he was parachuting, and he landed in the ocean, and a great white shark.
And then there was a shark.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, think of the tragedy of that. You're parachuting, the chute doesn't open. You're like, oh no, I'm screwed. You hit the water, you think, oh, I'm safe. And then the shark comes along. It's like, oh no, I'm actually screwed.
The shark didn't eat him. The shark bit him, and he got an infection, and he died later in the hospital.
It wasn't even related to the bite. It was one of those infections you pick up at the hospital.
Well,
so again, the up and down, the like, yay, oh, yay.
He died in the hospital. He got in an accident on the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
But he didn't die from the accident.
The irony.
He got out of the car, and he was wearing a red T-shirt.
And a giant, the same guy I met on the bus.
Isn't that odd?
As big as the guy in Green Mile. Just this enormous guy. Said,
so
I don't
really,
like your shirt.
The moral of the story.
He spit on his shoe, and when he bent over he was too old, and he fell and slipped.
So had you killed that man when you were on the bus, Al Jaffe would still be with us.
At 16, had I murdered that guy on the bus for spitting on my shoe, all this could have. I have his death on my hands, I guess.
So, in summary, murder is good, and that's what Gary believes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'm going before you can kick me out. Bye.
Okay. There we go. it does sound like a weird Corey. I've got a one-page comic idea for you, Christopher. Corey as the ball in a Rube Goldberg machine getting injured. So he's like hitting and rolling down a slide and going down into a thing and pushing a lever over. It's his body. He's like rolling and bumping things. And yeah, I think that's the one-page comic idea. Corey as the object of a Rube Goldberg. Okay, I guess I need to finish writing my introduction, DvsM 1979, which I think is very doable today. Probably have a couple people read it, including Jim Lujan, since he offered. Wanted a sneak peek. I'm going to try and finish the rest of it, the thank you page and the leaked classified object. Notice I'm saying object and not document. What does that mean? What would it be? I'll probably do that tomorrow. I think both of those are very finishable tomorrow. And then that will give me maybe Monday to read everything from copyright page, which is already done, introduction, story, fake news article, which is already done, leaked classified object, thank you page, back cover, all of it, 5 or 6 more times to look for anything I missed. And maybe, therefore, place a print order Tuesday. I think that's at least the aspirational thing. If I miss it by a day or two, whatever, but I think that's very doable. And then I really can take a break. Like, even though I've way eased off the gas, like none of this is as hard as drawing. As anyone in this chat can tell you, especially Josh, who's in the thick of it right now, none of what I'm talking about is difficult as drawing pages. But it's still work, and it's still not, I'm still not at the point where I can do what I've been talking about for months of like, just kind of, just stepping back and being done and watching movies and playing video games and like relaxing. Like I haven't gotten there yet. But once the print order is submitted, in fact, I might have to do that because that's when I'm anticipating. This is the analogy I've used before. When you've been working this hard, this long on something, and it just stops, comes to a screeching halt like it does when you submit a print order and you have nothing to do, and now you have to wait. You have to wait for the proof to show up. And then once the proof shows up, you approve the order, and then you're just waiting for the order to show up. And then the order shows up and you're just waiting. Like now you're like putting it on sale, and like there's like a lot of just nothing happening now once you get it done, once you submit the print order. And the working so intensely, and then suddenly it's over. The silence is deafening in your brain. Like it, and the analogy I've used in the past, it's like, you know, when people are deep underwater doing whatever they're doing down there and they come up, they have to slowly come up where they get the bends. The bends is this thing where all the gases in your body like expand and leaks gases into your bloodstream and stuff, and can like make you really sick or even kill you. Like there's just this shock of having gone from this high pressure environment to a low pressure environment above. That's what it's like when, to me, when it's like you've been working for at this point now, like, I don't know, 65 weeks probably, of just basically every free moment you're trying to do something with the comic, to then it just all stops. And I know from past experience, I fray a little bit in that initial, like those that week of waiting around for the print orders show up is like weird for me. Like I don't know what to do with myself. That seems like the perfect week to start playing a video game or something. Like just to do something to kind of like focus my attention on something and kind of sidestep from the interminable quiet. Let's see here. Thank you. I hope so. It's obviously I'm really close to it and it's hard. I'm at the stage where this is why Christopher was so good as to look it over for me to get, I was telling people a couple weeks ago, I wanted to get virgin eyes on it. People who had not read the script, who didn't know anything about it, who just like, here, this is what I've got. Please read through this and see if there's anything that's not working or typos or what you think or whatever. Part of the reason I want to involve people like that at the end who haven't been seeing every page as it gets done or whatever, didn't read the script, is I am so close to it at this point, I can't even evaluate. It's hard for me to even read it. It's like the goal is to be able to sit down and like, let me pretend I don't know anything about this and just read it. It is almost impossible to do. Like you've been so in this, it's so hard to get removed enough from it to really just have kind of a neutral approach. So I need other people to do that for me. But that all said, I think now that it's been a few weeks since I've been drawing, I'm just getting far enough away from it where I do feel like there's, like I have with all of them, there's something interesting here. It is a story that it's the story I wanted to tell. I think I told it. And I think it's interesting. I think it definitely is a nice companion for the previous two. I'll talk more about DvsM 1979 and where I think it fits into what I'm doing in the weeks to come. But I will say DvsM 1979, compared to the ones I've done and the ones I know I'm going to do, is the most DvsM-y of the DvsMs. And I can't really elaborate on that, but it's in some ways I don't know what word I want to use. I'll say this. DvsM 1975, the Men in Black one, I think it's very much like it's a DvsM. It's something. It's very much a story that I feel like is my story. You know, that I like. It feels like something Gary would do. Okay, but to me, it's like things that I've seen other places. Not too much, but a little bit like. Like even if you're looking at the Scott Serkland thing of like if Quentin Tarantino did an X-Files, it's vaguely X-Files-y. It's vaguely Pulp Fiction-y. It's vaguely, you know, like it's sort of like there's something. 97 also is, it's very much DvsM, it's very much me, but it also has a whiff of other things. To me, 97 kind of has a whiff of any kind of thing where you're talking to someone in jail, whether it's Silence of the Lambs or Primal Fear or like whatever. Like it has a whiff of that. It has a whiff of flashback stories. It has a whiff of like anything, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, like it's unique, it's different, but there is also a kind of a familiarity with like, this is sort of like these other things. 79, I think, we'll see if people agree when they read it. I can't think of anything I would compare it to. And that's what I mean when I say it's the most DvsM-y of the DvsMs. Like it is to me like it's all the uniqueness of the DvsM concept and storytelling ideas and how I decide to approach and how you know, what I'm trying to do with it, without a clear comparison to some other existing work that I could point to. I would find it very, if someone said, like, give me a comparison, what is 79 like? Point to a movie or a book or something. I genuinely wouldn't know what to point to. Like, I don't know. I don't know if there is something. Maybe there is. People might be able to tell me if there is when they read it. But that's what I mean, where I think it's like very much like it's the most distilled version, the most pure version of DvsM that I think I've done. And I think that I will do, because I know what the future ones are. And those are other things where I feel like, well, it's sort of like this and sort of like that. Like I can draw some like comparisons. This is the one that I think is, in some ways, it's, I don't mean this in a bad way, but in some ways it's the weirdest DvsM, in that it's just in that sense, that it's unlike any other thing that I don't know what I would compare it to. I think it's very much, it's kind of it's going to be a unique experience, I think, for readers. I hope, I think, I tried. But anyway. Paul, don't get handsy. Let's see. So close. Very close. Very, very close. Yeah, the waiting is hard. Maybe macrame. Maybe. Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say it's the most unusual DvsM. It's all paper pushing. 60 pages of just bureaucracy. That's it. Foo, how's it going, man? So yeah, but I'm happy with it. I think I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. It is, I remember when I finished 97 and it had gotten printed, and I was, for the first time, I think it was when I was looking through the proof. I was looking through the proof of 97, and I saw that first panel that shows Jenny. And I was struck by, this is more of like getting outside of it. I was struck by like, wow, she's gonna go on a journey in this book. Like there's a lot of rough road she's gonna drive in this story. That is something I definitely more so get when I look over 79. When I look at Dr. Wagner, and you see those opening panels of her waiting for a meeting to end, pacing in this hallway, in this facility somewhere. It's like, I got that when I was reading. It's like, oh man, the next few hours for her are crazy. Crazy. Like this. But that's always what DvsM will be. DvsM will always be, and I think if you really try to boil it down, like these are character stories. And what kind of character stories are they? They are stories about a few hours where someone's life changed forever. Everything changed in this sequence of events that's going to unfold in front of you. They were different. It wasn't just a thing that happened. It wasn't just like, you know, Dear Diary. This was a moment where their life like was going in this direction, and boom, it got changed. Everything's different now going forward. I think every DvsM, you're going to be able to say that about whoever the focal character is, that this is the story of how their life changed. And that definitely, with Dr. Wagner in 79, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot happening to this person in their life in the span of, I think 79 covers maybe 6 hours, probably all told. So like, and a lot happens. Anyway, okay. I think it does. I think it does. especially if you've liked both the DvsM so far, you're in good hands. It's going to be sort of more of that. But what I'm going to try to do, what I've been trying to do with each of them is a totally different now experience within that reality of DvsM. Like I'm trying each time to give you a very different vantage point and different ideas and different issues and different things that, you know, to think about and to chew on, but still within that universe. So I hope anyone who's been a fan of the series so far, you're always trying to do the best one yet. I think everyone, like all of us here, all of us who do this stuff, like you're never trying to like, I want to do about as good as, no, you're always trying to raise the bar with everyone. And I think I was successful. I think this is, I mean, for me, again, because it's the most, I think, pure and most like what I'm trying to do, I think it's the best DvsM yet. That doesn't mean it's going to be everyone's favorite, because I want everyone to have their own favorite. Like I always dreamed when I finished all 6, some people would be like, I liked number 5, I like number 2, I like number 3, I like number 1, whatever. And like, but ideally, I would like you to like them all. You have your favorite, but you like them all. I feel like this is the best of them. I like them all. They're all my kids. But I know that I made it at the best at doing DvsMs that I've ever been. I think each time you're getting better, your drawing's getting a little bit better, your idea of what you're trying to do is better, your ambitiousness, you push I know, here's what I can say for sure. It's hard for me to comment on the quality of DvsM in 79 in particular. What I can say is that I pushed harder with 79 than with any of the prior 2. Like I really like tried to take big swings with 79. We'll see. We'll see if they pay off. But it's all about taking big swings. Okay. That's it for today. It's 2 hours. Going to work on introduction. I will be here next week. Same time, 11 a.m. Saturday. Hopefully, letting you know that I placed a print order. And probably, though it won't be ready to show, working on the trailer for DvsM 1979, which I talked about last time, but I haven't made. There's a Premiere file set up. I have the first couple seconds and I have the music in it. And that's all I've done. So like it's very, very behind. But the trailer's not going to come out till it's available to order anyway, which probably will be like the end of this month or something. We'll see. It depends on how the print order goes. That's enough for today. Thanks for everyone for coming by. Good luck on your own projects. Will there be a blank cover? Not immediately, but later this year, probably much later, I do intend to do a Kickstarter for the first DvsM trade, which will be DvsM Part 1. It'll compile the first 3 into a trade with some bonus materials. I'm already working on things that will be offered in the Kickstarter, like looking at some prints and stuff like that. Like there'll be a lot of fun things, a lot of exciting things, especially thinking about the fact that some people who might be backing have already they've already read all the books. So like sweetening the deal, like with new extra fun stuff to make this more attractive to trade. Something I think will be like one of those deal sweetening things will probably be blanks of the first 3 for people who are interested in that. That's one of the things I'm considering. I haven't nailed down. The only thing I know for sure that will be offered in the Kickstarter are prints. I'm going to be doing, and I don't plan, I might have to, depending if I can't find the people I want, but my goal is to commission artists to do a print for each book. There'll be a unique print by a different artist for each book. The one for 97 is already in the works, and I'm very excited about it. It was the first idea I had for like a print for 97, and I think it's going to be, I'm excited to have it. I think everyone who, especially if you love 97, you'll want this print. There's an artist I've been talking to about doing a custom illustration for 79, this one that's coming out. We're circling, like I've like, would you be interested in doing this? They were like, yeah, maybe, it depends. And I was like, look, I'll send you, when the book is done, I'll send it to you so you get a better sense of what I want, like what I'm talking about. And then you can tell me whether you're interested, if you are interested, what your rate would be, whatever. But there's an artist, I'm not going to name them right now, but there's an artist that I would be delighted if they would do a print for 79. I'd be so excited. And that would be very, very cool. And then I still also want to find somebody to do a print for 75. I have an idea what I would want that to be. Now I'm trying to track down an artist in that style. There's a style I have in mind. The key for all the prints will be not me. You've seen plenty of my drawing. You have 3 books of my drawing at this point. I think it would be more interesting to bring in other artists to do their spin on these different things. So I have an idea for 75. I know what I want. I need to find an artist who can do that. And so I've been just barely starting the research of like, who does this style and who's like doing it in a way that I like, and who do I think will take commissions, and who do I think I can afford? Like there's like all that kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway, those are the only things I know 100% will happen with the Kickstarter. There's going to be a print for each book. And then of course, you know how Kickstarter works. You back this much, you get the book. You back this much, you get a print of your choosing. You back this much, you get 2 prints of your choosing. You back this much, you get the book and all 3 prints, et cetera, et cetera. That's where maybe some blanks would work in, but I don't know yet. I've been considering that. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate that. And I've told you this several times privately. Thank you again for looking over 79. I appreciated all your feedback. I made most of the changes that Christopher brought my attention to. Changes I didn't make, they weren't because I disagreed. I told Christopher this privately. It's usually because the change created issues that I didn't know how to solve. So for example, without getting into specifics, it's like, well, maybe we could move this dialogue bubble to the next panel. But maybe when I put it in that panel, it covers something in the image. Like the only good spot for it is covering something in the image that I think is important. Or maybe to save time, I didn't draw anything behind the bubble in this one that I'm moving. So now I'm revealing, now I have to do a bunch of drawing to finish this area that I like moved the dialogue away from. And I'm just kind of out of drawing mode. I'm not doing that. So it might be like, I agree with the point that Christopher makes, but it's not an easy change to make. So I think I'm going to have to live with it. There's some of that, but a lot of the changes I was like, yep, you're right. And yep, I agree with you. And I like sat and did some tweaking. So, and I really appreciated it. And I think the book is 100% better for your time and attention. Thank you again. Thank you, Josh, for coming by. And a lot about, and paperwork, what paperwork looks like in 1979 in DvsM. Okay. Thanks again, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Good luck on your respective projects, and I will see you all next weekend.